Good evening, good evening, good evening. Hello, Facebook friends and family, to all of our social media families who are here with us on today. Where are you? It's Monday night, and we are here with Couch Conversations with the Doctors. So we definitely want to tell you hello and thank you for joining us on this evening for Couch Conversations with the Doctors, where true health is wealth. That's what we teach. Of course, this program is for information purposes only, but we are here to assist everyone as much as we possibly can with our highly proficient panel that we have here who keeps us on target and keeps us healthy. As always, we're going to go around the panel real quick and begin to introduce everyone that's here. I'll start off with our very famous Dr. P, who is that support services medical director over at Near North Health, but he is also that dad and adamant cook, I think. I don't know. But it's Dr.
Hey,
Nikki. Dr. P, go right ahead.
Hey, Nikki, Congressman, I appreciate this opportunity to share with the community information that we have to keep the community healthy.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I see my coworker there, and his name is Dr. Douglas Graham, the one who left us in all the snow and he's in the heat. But we're going to forgive him anyway. Go right ahead. Doug, why don't you introduce yourself? And it looks like Doug just may be a little frozen there. Okay, so he should be back. Doug, are you back?
I'm trying to.
Okay, go right ahead. Introduce yourself.
Hi. I'm a retired physician. I worked in the Chicago area for many, many years. Last year, I joined Representative Davis in his office as a congressional fellow. I'm here to help with healthcare, and I'll try and answer your questions if I can.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. To the man who says that he loves being here, but I threaten him sometimes, even though we all know that that's not the case. That's our very own Dr. James Miller. Dr. Miller, if you can introduce yourself to everyone that's here.
Good evening, and welcome. And I'm glad to be back. I've been on a little hiatus and had some occasion and situation to think about real life. And so I'd like to share some of those things with you tonight, as well as about your health.
All right. I see we have another HIV specialist here on the line that's in family practice, but she is an adamant African dancer. That's our very own Dr. Maya Green. Dr. Green, if you can introduce yourself.
Hey, good evening, Congressman and Nikki. Thank you for having me. I'm Dr. Maya, always here to keep it 100. It's a beautiful night. Hope you got out and got some activity, and I'm glad to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. To the man who's the weight loss guru, but he is a family medicine specialist. He has a great family medicine practice, and he tries to keep everyone healthy and tells you that he wants you off medication and that he has some answers to get that done. Now, his real passion, people, is to really be on Iron Chef. I don't know if he's going to make it, but we'll be rooting for him. That's our very own Dr. Tony Hampton. Go right ahead, Tony.
Thank you, Nikki. I am excited always. Had some success stories at clinic today. I think that a lot of people who learn from what we're sharing will have success stories. So I just encourage everybody listening, as you get nuggets that will change your life, take those nuggets and run with it. It's a new year. It's a time to be excited. And spring is here. So let's make some new decisions that can change your life.
Great. And those are nuggets of meat he's talking about, because we have to talk about meat right now before Dr. Terry Mason gets here. Our meat conversation will be over. Yeah. And I want to say hey to Michelle Garrison that's here, to Kathleen Jackson that says good evening to everyone, to Karen who's here and she's sharing. So thank you so much, Karen, for sharing this with your audience. To Mimi who's here, that fashion designer who keeps everyone on target, but says that Dr. Hampton, she's going to follow you because she no longer wants to be a diabetic and she wants to make sure that some things change. To Bonnie Smedley, Sister Bonnie, who is here with us as well, who says, good evening, everyone. And she wants you guys to know that she went to see her doctor this week and she is doing great. But of course, the vanguard of healthcare, the one who teaches us each and every day that health is wealth, the guy who last night they referred to him as being a workaholic, but he is always working for the people. He is the true voice of the people. And that's our very own Congressman Danny K. Davis of the Illinois 7th Congressional District.
Well, let me thank everybody that's with us. I am so excited because there are so many good things going on. I had such a delightful weekend until it's just hard to imagine. On yesterday, I visited the 85th year birthday for Dr. Jenny Pettis, a dynamic woman who is a minister who built a brand new church. It paid for, and she was celebrating her 85th birthday. And it was just marvelous. And they did have church, but they had things worked out so well until everything was socially distanced. She's always been heavily engaged in beauty, and everything was just so marvelous, so beautiful. And so we had a wonderful time. Then last night we had our international celebration of women, our multi-ethnic advisory group. And we celebrated women from around the world. We had 20 outstanding women who were given honors and accolades. A couple of them were actually prime ministers of their country, Finland. And we had elected people, we had scientists, we had business people, we had every kind of person you could imagine. And it was just marvelous, and the food was great. You know, you have to eat at these things. Man does not live by conversation alone. And so Saturday, I was with the group and we gave away 2,000 refrigerators and microwaves. It was just incredible. A faith group that we also gave away thousands of boxes of food, 2 18-wheeler truckloads with groceries and meat, brand new clothing for children and adults. One guy got so many suits until he just can't know what to do with them. And so there are just so many people doing so many wonderful things. And of course, this week we've got our great big focus at the United Center. And we want to thank them because even though the Bulls aren't winning any championships, the Blackhawks have a little trouble too, but they're doing some other things because thousands of people will be there this week getting their vaccination. That's a big mass vaccination opportunity that the federal government, state government, local governments are all jointly participating. And we know that thousands of people, once it's done, and they've actually expanded and changed things a little bit, and you don't even have to be a senior citizen and get it. And so there's some new guidelines. So I'm excited, not to mention the fact that the $1.9 trillion relief rescue package is all but done. I'm saying we got another step or two to make, but in reality, it's done. People can be planning what they're going to do with the $1,400 that they're going to get to help bail them out. Colleges and universities can start planning. States can try to start knowing what they're going to do with the $350 billion that states are going to divide. Hospitals, clinics, and health centers and all of those other places know that they're going to have $46 billion to do testing and do vaccinations and to buy equipment. And so it's a celebration type mood that I'm in. We're not out of the water, but we're sure doing pretty good. So we want to thank the doctors not only for chatting, but some of them will even stick that needle in your arm if they have to and help make sure that you got your vaccination. So it's good to see everybody. Please carry on and we'll chat some more because we've had so many good things that we've passed. Police can't chokehold you in Illinois no more. Guess what? Police can't chokehold you. Not in Illinois. They can't batter your door down without a good reason and break into your house and say, we thought your nephew who used to live here 12 years ago was still here and he's supposed to have been selling dope. So a lot of good things are going on. And hey, thank you all. Nick, it was good seeing you last night, laid out. Proceed.
Well, Virginia Knight says, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Everyone, all of this knowledge in the same place at the same time is very explosive. We got your questions. Know that you can also put your questions here in the chat box, and we'll grab those just as well. But Dr. Pete, and to our great panel here, people want to ask a question about rest. Just how important is that? Is it really important to have those 8 hours of sleep at night? Or does your body really get affected if you don't have 8 hours of sleep? Or how important is rest? And is it especially important in a season of pandemic?
Yeah.
Don't all you all jump in at the same time. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I think I'll start, but I'm sure all of us have seen the impact that stress has. Even at low levels, stress makes your body produce these hormones that are really for survival purposes. But over time, because this stress never really has a way to, or people don't find a way to relieve it, it's called epinephrine and norepinephrine. So when these stress hormones, and even cortisol, these are stress hormones, and over time they raise your blood pressure, they raise your blood sugar. They have a lot of really bad impacts on your body over time. And so they're for survival purposes. It's to get you out of danger, right? So if there was a lion in front of you, and I don't mean to mention lion, but it could be a lion or whatever, an angry person in front of you, and you got to get out of there. Those hormones are meant to liberate blood flow to get you to safety, basically. And so, but what we're finding is, as physicians and as providers, is that over time, this stuff has a huge impact on your blood sugar, the rates of diabetes, the rates of high blood pressure, and then even the lack of sleep, your body views as a stressor. So the lack of sleep, your body will view that as a lion in front of you. So and while we're pretty proficient at treating the cause of, like, the secondary causes, we're real good at treating the diabetes and high blood pressure and all the rest of that, but we're not. And I think as a healthcare industry, we need to be more proficient at getting to the root cause. Like, why is this blood pressure so out of control, and you're on 3 different blood pressure medicines and things like that? And we know that sometimes goes back to a stress. I don't know if anybody else wants to tackle that one.
Yeah, from a mental health standpoint, a lot of times I do see patients who are having difficulties with sleeping. And what I do tell them is that for each age and stage developmentally, there are a certain number of hours that are required for us to perform at our fullest, right? So if we're not getting those hours, sometimes we may have difficulties with short term or long term memory. Sometimes we're not able to complete tasks, daily tasks at work. Sometimes we may be irritable. Sometimes we may have mood swings, right? And sometimes we may not be ourselves. So I do often tell patients if you're not getting those recommended hours between 8 and 10, sometimes it's less, and sometimes people are getting even 1, 2, or 3 hours. I'm not sure how they're doing it. It can really offset our whole mental health, right? So just something to remember from a mental health standpoint. So.
Mm-hmm. And then I just want to wrap it into, I know here we talk a lot about what we put in our bodies, eating, things like that. But like added to that, sleeping is just as important as eating, drinking, breathing, because not only does your body, that Dr. P talked about, your body needs to sleep to restore things. That's sleep. While we sleep is the time our blood vessels in our heart kind of gets restored. So when Dr. P was talking about sleep, if you don't sleep, you have problems with blood pressure. It's because our blood vessels get restored during sleep. And also, the hormones that Dr. P talks about will actually raise our blood pressure if they're present. And then, so that's why when you look, sleep is lack of sleep, not sleep, but lack of sleep is associated with things like high blood pressure, heart failure, sometimes obesity, but also like Dr. Jasmine was talking about, it's associated with depression and suicide, and inability to concentrate during work, all those things. So I was reading about, like, I think between 50 and 70 million Americans discuss some level of sleep deprivation, and it could be a myriad of things. I know Dr. Mason talked about, like, and Dr. Tony talked about watching what you put in your body is not enough to just eat. You got to watch what you eat. But also, like Dr. Jasmine was talking about, it's not enough to just sleep. You can watch when you sleep. If your body's circadian rhythm or 24-hour internal clock that's attached, that coincides with sleep is matched up. What types of sleep you get? Like, are you up and down, up and down? Do you have a problem not getting sleep when you first lay down? Do you have a problem getting back to sleep once you get sleep? It's so important to what we do in our lives, how we react to things emotionally. It's just as important as what you put in your body. Then the last thing I'll say, because I know I'm talking a lot, there is rest, there's sleep, and then there's also rest, and Nikki mentioned how important it is, like, sleep and rest. There is a physical rest called sleep. There's a mental rest that happens when you sleep, but also there's a spiritual rest. So you have to the balance is when you get all three.
Dr. Maya, if I could just piggyback a little bit on what you said. I'm sorry, Tony, were you? Oh, okay. You're muted, Tony. I don't.
Oh, no, I was saying you can go first. I'll chime in afterwards.
Okay. No, I'm sorry. Just what Dr. Maya was saying. One of the things that we're trying to do also in our restart lectures is really beginning to get people to stop thinking in these unidimensional ways, and that we are not only just physical beings, but we are spiritual beings, and we are also mental. And so we need to make certain that our dietary intake not only is right physically, but spiritually and mentally healthy as well. Because those things, when your spirit is troubled, sometimes even though your body might be tired, you still won't get any sleep. And I'm not saying that you need to get up and go to church or anything like that, but we are beings that have to be nourished. And one of the things that we're trying to do with this restart program is to get people to understand that you need the right spiritual food, the right mental food, and the right physical food. If this is going to work, I hope I don't. So I'm just prayerful that we'll get to those things, so we'll be able to do what needs to be done.
Yeah, I agree. And my whole approach as I teach, in social media, YouTube, is about balance. I think that's the key. And if you wake up in the morning and you don't feel refreshed, you're probably not getting enough sleep, or the quality of the sleep is not good. And I think that some of us have been sleep deprived so long that we don't even realize that it's abnormal. Many of us are just chronically tired. And I talked to a couple of people recently, patients, and they said, yeah, I get 4 or 5 hours, but that's all I need. Now, the irony is that when they did research on sleep in the 1940s, it was at Stanford, they found that you need 8 hours or so. But what the reality is with the new research, is not true for everybody. Some people actually can be fine on 6 hours. Some people are fine on 8 hours. Most people need 7 to 8 hours. Let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
So thankfully so the best way to figure it out is to do your own little experiment. And if it's a Friday night and you got Saturday and Sunday work with, just don't set the alarm and see what your body tells you. And eventually your body will let you know if you need a certain number of hours. I personally need about 7 hours. So it's kind of a individual thing, but the key is that this is just as it was stated, sleep is so important, and you can't really expect to function normally. But it's also important to recognize again that everybody's different. Babies sleep a long time because their amount of melatonin is different than the teenagers who don't want to go to sleep, right? And then as we get older, we tend to, have a different sleep pattern. So that's why you want to do a little bit of an experiment so you can kind of figure out where you lie. But what I do know as a physician, if you don't get enough sleep, you double your risk for cancer. If you don't get enough sleep, you're not going to be able to think with mental clarity. You're not going to have the ability to concentrate. Your body won't heal. Your hormones will be off. In fact, when I was studying obesity, and this is the last thing I'll say, when I was studying obesity, the hunger hormone, which is called ghrelin, it goes up when you don't get enough sleep, and your satiety hormone, which tells you you're full, leptin, goes down. So in other words, you're going to be hungrier and you don't get full. And then so people who are trying to lose weight, which is kind of my area of specialty, they can't lose weight if they don't get sleep. I don't care if you're eating keto, low fat, whatever. If you don't get enough sleep, you're still going to gain weight and you're still going to become diabetic. In fact, our very own University of Chicago has shown that if you get 5 hours of sleep, you become borderline diabetic within 1 week.
Yeah.
1 week. Imagine that. So if that's true, and guess what? You get 7 to 8 hours, you reverse it in 1 week. So imagine those people who are chronically sleep deprived. Diabetes is on its way. Obesity is on its way. So that's why that's why I'm glad that question was brought up, because sleep, you can't be healthy without adequate sleep. So I really encourage anybody listening to us tonight, if you haven't prioritized sleep. I used to drive by Christ Hospital on the South Side, get to Cicero and 95th, and I would be sleeping at the stoplight. That was my normal. The problem is I did the same thing on 294 one day and almost killed myself. So you have to get sleep, and if you don't, you put yourself in harm's way.
Hey, docs. How many of y'all remember residency where we would stay up all night, okay, work all night, the whole day, stay up that night, and then get up and work again? At least when I was in residency, they started this rule where you had to leave by 12 noon the next day. Of course, if you're a senior resident, you couldn't leave until all your work was done. I remember leaving the hospital, and Congressman, I'm not kidding you, I have no clue. I have no memory of walking out of the hospital, getting in my car, driving my car, going to my apartment, and laying down. I have no memory of it.
It just happened.
It was just, that happened to me a couple of times where I was just like, and I'm thinking to myself, this is not right.
Yeah.
Yeah, one
So
thing
they stopped that now. They don't allow that now.
they don't allow it now, right? Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. And then when we talk about mental, how mentally how mental we are, how mentally clear we are. I remember when I was in residency, in my OB rotation, and when I was like, when I slept well, everybody was like, "Oh, whatever rotation I was on, everybody thought I secretly wanted to be that." You know what I'm saying? You're OB, people like, "She must really want to be OB." It's like, no, I'm family medicine. That's exactly. You know, but I remember they told my counselor or the person, my mentor, they were like, "Oh, she's great on whatever rotation." And he said, "Have you ever had a conversation with her post call?" And on my last day, he was like, "You were the worst post call resident I have ever seen in my life." He's like, "You're two different people." He's like, "You're two different people." That's how important it is for me. Yep.
Well, the thing I wanted to throw in on this is that, first of all, we know that our body needs, we need certain things. And just like in any other situation, if we wanted to look at a vehicle, it needs certain things in order to be able to operate. So do our bodies, food, but sleep and rest is also part of our needs. And so a couple of things that I always was a concern about when someone came to me with the problem that they're not getting enough sleep, like having complaining of symptoms of lack of sleep, was number one, why isn't this person sleeping? Because that oftentimes is will lead you to some other things that are going on that is not right in this person's life, or some things that that are out of control with them that they need to have addressed. And so that's an important issue for us to do when someone comes and say, "Doctor, I'm just tired all the time," and then you evaluate the situation and you maybe come up with the understanding that you're just not sleeping enough. Then we need to begin to figure out, why aren't you sleeping? Is it one can train the body to do a lot of things that it's not shouldn't be doing, in terms of, as they talk about when we were resident. We trained ourselves to be able to function with inadequate amount of sleep. But those are things that we do hopefully for short periods of time and that it goes away. But the major thing is that we want patients to understand that sleep is just as important as all those other needs that your body have. Your body needs to eat, it needs food, it needs air, it needs oxygen. So sleep is also an important ingredient. And if you decide to deprive your body of that, it will react and it will fail, just as it will if you deprive it of some of these other ingredients.
Yeah, I can tell you this, as a psychologist, I work about 10 to 12 hours a day. I need my 8 to 10 hours, or I know I'm going to be irritable, moody. I'm going to have difficulties with concentration and listening and attending. So I know it has to be rough. One thing I wanted to add from a medical standpoint, and I know one of the doctors could expand, sometimes when we're anxious or maybe have depressive or anxiety related symptoms, sometimes our sleep is inefficient, and we're thinking about REM sleep, those different stages. So some people can say, and I have patients who say, "Hey, I was asleep for 10 hours last night, but I could hear everything. It's like I wasn't asleep." There are different levels of sleep too that could make you feel like you have not gotten enough rest because of different things as it relates to mental health. So just notice what you notice and just be in tune to that as well as we're talking about sleep. So
I just wanted to add too, Dr. Jasmine, is that one of the things is the quality of your sleep. And I think we talked about that a little bit. Just as your eyes are closed and you're in the bed doesn't mean you think you sleep. You may not be really asleep. And I would say that one of the bad things that we have now, when I was growing up, a television was, a big thing, a big piece of furniture, and we didn't have them in our rooms. Now we have 65-inch plasma televisions that emit an immense amount of light and radiation into the room. And sometimes the colors of those lights are very, very intense. So even when you go to sleep with the TV on, and I'll have to say sometimes I'm guilty of that too. But if you have a sleep timer, use the sleep timer on the TV, set it so that the TV will turn itself off at about, give it 35 minutes or so. So that is one of the things that I say to folks, because these televisions that we have today are very, very bright. And some people have talked about the electromagnetic wave spectrum of some of the energy that comes from these things. And they can have some have said some adverse effects. I'm not an expert on that, but I would just say we need to make sure that we're doing that. And there are some people who believe we should not have televisions in the bedroom. There's some people that believe that it's that bad sometimes. So I'll stop.
Yeah, I can speak for myself. I think it is better that we leave the TV in the living room, because I think when we think about sleep, what you're referring to, Dr. Mason, is our sleep hygiene, right? So I don't allow any laptops in the bed. There's no TV in my room. When I get ready to go to bed, my phone is put up an hour before bedtime. So if you text me, it's on the charger at 8:30, believe it or not. That's what I try to do going to sleep, because I want to be in the bed by 9:30 the latest. That's mine, but it helps me, and it's personal preference. But I guess because I work with a lot of children and families and peds, that's like the go-to, because for children, adolescents, and young adults, if you have any screen time in your room, it's like the brain is like up, right? It hasn't shut down, right? So really, I'm a big proponent, I'm like, no, nothing in the bedroom, but that's me and that's my preference, right? It's just me. So, yeah.
The bedroom has, well, just real quick, the bedroom has two functions. And we all grown folks up in here. So one is sleep. Amen, Nikki, you heard me. And you know what the other one is. Hallelujah. Let me just get that out on the table. But I do want to really quickly address Dr. Mason's, light, blue light. It's the blue light that we're really worried about, because blue light suppresses melatonin. And melatonin, you want that to be high at the end of the day, not, so blue light suppresses melatonin. So how do you do that? Many of us remember the blue blocker commercials that used to come on, and that's a legit thing. They have other brands, like a really good brand is True Dark, so you can look that up on Amazon. But if you put those blue light blocking glasses on at the end of the day, maybe 30 minutes to 2 hours before you go to sleep, it'll start to prepare your body. And what you're trying to do is prepare your body for rest, like the baby. You want to create an environment that's conducive to sleep, and you're going to get your little warm shower. You want to cool the house off a little bit, maybe have some dark shades in your house so it's dark. And you may even want to powder your bottom, just like the baby. You read a story to yourself, and put some Epsom salts in that bath so you can get that magnesium, because magnesium is helpful. So all of these things are helpful, but the main thing is to get on a consistent schedule. I will not, I remember when the Bulls used to do their what do they call it when they go out west? The circus trip. Remember that? When they take the circus trip, because they'd have to have the Ringley Brothers Circus at the United Center. I'm sitting there watching all these games at 11 o'clock at night, knowing I got to go to work, right? And I'm tired the next day. So I don't do circus trips anymore. I don't do none of that. I get my rest. And I think if you get your rest, as was suggested, Dr. Jasmine said, she gets irritable. I don't want to go to work and be irritable. I don't want to be irritable to my family. I don't want to be irritable to my team at work. And so all of these things matter. And that's why sleep is so important.
And Dr. Mason or Dr. Tony, Dr. Hampton, what do you think is a good time? You talk about things you put into your body. So as we're talking about this, I'm also thinking about caffeine. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And we know caffeine can last about 8 hours. So sometimes when we're having that 2 o'clock afternoon,
Leave me alone, Maya.
Oh, my
I know he ain't drinking no coffee.
So what are you all's thoughts on that? Nikki, sorry if I'm asking questions, but what are you all's thoughts on, how soon, or caffeine, yes or no, and how soon, and that bit?
After 2 p.m., we're done. 2 p.m., we're done.
It's amazing you say that. 2 p.m. If you are sensitive to caffeine, it needs to be 12. But if you're not super sensitive, it needs to be 2. And again, this is another example of an experiment that you can do to determine what works for you. Number 2, I'm writing an article for Diet Doctor about sleep in the next couple of weeks. So I looked up something related to the caffeine recently. And what I learned is that caffeine is interesting because it blocks the adenosine receptors. And when you think about adenosine, us medical professions have heard of that because we think about ATP. That's adenosine triphosphate. So when you create energy, that's our source of energy. And then the triphosphates are broken down to adenosine diphosphates, and the diphosphates are broken down to monophosphates, and eventually you're left with adenosine. So adenosine binds to their receptors, and then it makes you feel sleepy. What coffee does, coffee actually binds into the adenosine receptors, so you don't know you're sleepy. So Dr. Pete. But it depends on the individual. Some people can drink coffee and go to sleep. I don't know how they do it, and
I'm one of them.
Doctor.
The congressman probably has a cup of coffee right now too, so Pete is not alone. The congressman drink coffee just alike.
Right, it's like water.
It doesn't bother them.
Everybody, as long as the congressman and Dr. P feel well rested, they may be, in terms of how their body metabolically reacts to this adenosine question. But for most people, the half-life of coffee, I think it's about 8 hours. So if you start at a level of 24 in the morning, you're going to be, 8 hours later, you're at 12, and then, 8 hours later, by the time you get to you're down at 6 or less. So for most people, that's at a low enough level they can rest. Now, for me personally, if I drink coffee at 2, 3, I'm gonna end up waking up. I'm gonna struggle going to sleep. So you have to listen to your body. It's also what you become adapted to. Some people are adapted to it; they drink it regularly. But if you take a break from coffee for like a month and you get back on it, it's gonna be like you're gonna feel the difference.
So I'm just all messed up because I got the laptop is in my bed, both of my phones are in the bed. The TV is on, and I'm going to be in there in a little while, and all that stuff is going to be in there, and I will be working on all of it. And if I put my TV on a sleep timer, I'll fall asleep, and when the TV cuts off, I'm going to wake up because I need to turn that TV back on.
Yeah, I'll say real quick, Nikki, you shouldn't feel
We're
bad.
going to talk about me.
No, this is a good thing. It's a good thing. They did some research. When I was researching for my article for the Diet Doctor, they did say that for people who struggle to go to sleep without a TV, the experts are now saying for those people, it's okay. Now, if you got a marriage or something like that going on, you may have to get some headphones or something where your partner and you have to figure the partner may have to cover their face with something. You may have to have headphones. The key is you want to stay married, and the snorers out there. We need to look at the snorers to figure out what's going on with them because they may have sleep apnea. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
I was going to say that experiment you said, Dr. Hampton, just like we think about our hygiene as we bathe, right? Brush our teeth, sleep hygiene is another thing. I just want to add that in there. But also how you said the experiment, for me, caffeine at 2. If I drink anything past 2, I'm going to be up at night. I'm just going to be looking up at the ceiling and I'm not going to be able to go to sleep. So I try to drink it before 12 or I'm going to be up. So Dr. Pete, I don't know how you're doing it, but God bless you.
I'm a pro. I'm a bona fide pro, so I don't want no beginners out there trying to do what I do.
Don't do this at home, huh?
Don't try this at home. Listen, we have a question. One of our viewers said, "What happens when you go to bed at 10 p.m. and you wake up at 3 a.m. and you can't go back to sleep? What should we do?"
That's a good question. From a behavioral health standpoint, and I know someone would talk about the medical aspect of it, what I tell patients is if you can't go back to bed within 15 minutes, to get up, right? Okay, get up out of the bed. Do not put a screen in your face. Don't turn the TV on, but you can grab a book, maybe walk around the house, right? Listen to music that does not, we don't need anything to like really make the brain like wide awake, right? Maybe you can draw, you can journal, But if you cannot go to back to sleep within 15 minutes, get out of the bed. Okay. Don't sit in the bed, but maybe in a chair, go to the living room until you start feeling like you're tired again, and then get back in the bed. Those are one of many things that I suggest, and maybe other people have other recommendations. So.
Yeah. So I think you're right, Dr. Jasmine. A lot of times, something I find personally for myself, like I'm an adult, and so sometimes I forget that the same things I needed when I was a child or a baby to go to sleep, I'm like, I'm an adult now, I shouldn't need that. You totally do, right? So Dr. Hampton already mentioned a sleep routine. Do it, try not to do anything different because it's the weekend, exercise early in the day. Don't try to exercise like right before it's time to go to bed. Turn everything off. The same things, like you wouldn't put a baby in front of a fire, like a fire truck and be like, here, go to sleep, so those same things. Get your little small snack in, towards that thing, but try not to eat like an hour before, try not to eat dinner too late. Also, if you wake up, so the name of like waking up in the middle of the night or not being able to go to sleep in the middle of the night is insomnia. It's a common problem that people have, right? But also, like you said, Dr. Jasmine, retrain yourself. Just like a baby will wake up in the middle of the night, you re-swaddle and lay the baby back down. What you just described is my re-swaddle and kind of me going ahead and laying back down. And then your relaxation techniques. Now they have like meditation things you can do to get to sleep. The other thing I want to point out that keeps a lot of people up, including something I had to see in myself, is that social media. And so you have to take a social media break. I had to get to because I'm like, well, what's going on with the vaccines? I don't need to know. I don't know what I'm gonna do 2 o'clock in the morning with the vaccine that whatever, the city of Chicago put out, I don't know why I was doing that. So I had to put a block on my phone for social media and other stuff after a certain time. That screen time is something else. And we say with kids, you decrease that screen time. It's the same thing with us as adults.
Yeah.
One of the other things that that I find is very that helps me with those kinds of situations is that having soothing sounds. There are actually little instruments called sound machines, and for some people, for me, actually, I like the sound of a storm. Maybe for some people that for some people it may be a certain kind of music, but soothing sounds are something that they don't. It's more background. It's not something that you engage in. It's something that is remote from you. Yet and still, it tends to relax you. And so those kinds of situations where you wake up at night, if those sounds are actually on, present, and going on, oftentimes that can be enough to help you to relax and to take your mind off whatever it is that caused you to wake up and get back to sleep. So soothing sounds are another thing that you can use.
Yeah.
And don't mention alcohol also. The alcohol, there is something called rebound insomnia. So everybody want to look that one up. Rebound insomnia occurs when you drink alcohol and then it makes you wake up later. You think you're in a good sleep, but you're not. So alcohol is something. And then what Dr. Jasmine said was important in terms of, well, I'm thinking more about the stomach issue. So you want to really give yourself 3 to 4 hours. Ideally, I know it's hard to do that. We're all busy working late, but if you can get yourself 3 to 4 hours to digest your food, then you'll have your body can then focus on sleeping instead of digestion, which will wake you up. Believe it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I was going to say, if you're married or in a relationship, don't be like Bob. I'm just making up something. Don't wake up your significant other if you can't sleep and have the light looking at your phone while your significant other, because that will interrupt your significant other. I am that significant other. Okay. So just something that could interrupt too, right? So if you're sleeping and you wake up, if you have someone with you, sometimes that light can interfere with your partner as well. So think smart, not like Bob.
So Virginia Knight says, oh my, Jack Lynch says, hello everyone. Good evening all. Jack Lynch from Gift of Hope. Audrey Jaycock says, good evening. Dorothy Murphy says, good evening. Kathleen Jackson says, thank you for the comments, Dr. Cersei. Curtis Jones says, hallelujah, blue. He also says, good evening. Audrey Jaycock shared that I drink coffee just before going to bed, so she must be in that category with the Congressman and Dr. Pete. She's a pro. Don't try this at home. That is not for amateurs. Curtis Jones also says, I love the sound of rain. It is very soothing. There is a question on Periscope that I am afraid to take, but I am going to take this question. And this question says, Dr. Mason, the shape of our teeth says that we should probably eat meat. What do you think? Now, I'm going to leave that question right there. I shared it.
Nikki, you petty. Nikki, you petty.
We are omnivores.
That's what they asked. I don't know. Come on, Dr. Mason.
No, I'm just saying that generally humans are omnivores. They can eat both meat and they can eat plants. I mean, true carnivores, if you look at the true carnivores, and if you really want to get into this thing about who's made to eat meat, Dr. Milton Mills has some great videos out about how we're designed and the different design between how true carnivores are designed versus those that are not. But I think that, people that eat, animals that eat meat have huge canines, teeth that come down like this for tearing. They have much larger esophaguses so that the food can be easily swallowed. But I think that if you're talking about humans can eat either. And we have teeth that facilitate the consumption of either plants or animals. So the question is not whether we're designed to eat it, it's what impact it has on us when we do.
I agree. I think we are probably omnivores, which reflects what Dr. Mason is saying. We eat meat and plants. And I think for me, I'm a scientist, so I'm going to make my decision based on evidence-based medicine. Unfortunately, a lot of the evidence out there, we've talked about this before, is based on science that's based on epidemiological, observational studies that does not show causation. It just shows association and correlation. So that's why there's so much confusion in nutritional science. Even the dietary guidelines that we recommend for our babies, our WIC programs, they're all based on studies that don't show causation. So what kind of nonsense does that make, right? Interesting enough, I'll be interviewing for this week coming up, Tim Noakes, who's in South Africa. And we are going to have a conversation literally about this topic, what are we kind of designed to eat? But I think, I'll be honest with you, I'm sure Tim Noakes, Professor Noakes will say this, it does sometimes have a little bit to do with where you're from, right? So there are some people who should be eating certain types of foods based on their genetic makeup, where they, what they had in their environment, and where other people can get away with eating differently. So that's why me and Dr. Mason get along, because we understand that there's some bio-individuality. In other words, everybody's a little different, and you may have, why does the Irish folk get celiac disease? Well, it has a lot to do with they can't tolerate the wheat, right? Well, they didn't have wheat in the environment where they were, their ancestors lived. And then you have other cultures that may tolerate meat more, depending on where they're from. So I think you have to be nuanced. I think one day we'll come up with the science to determine what's the best diet and all of that based on but you can't just say one size fits all. And that's the biggest mistake we've had in nutritional science. You're going to give one meal to everybody, and that's just not the right answer. We got to figure out what's best for the individual. And again, that's why there's room in the world for both ways, different diets, different approaches. You have to figure out what's best for you.
And then Dr. Hampton, I just think it's important to also know, yes, the diets are built off of our bodies and where our ancestors came, and things like that. Something I've seen is I have to listen to my body. So I'm a person. So I used to live in Nigeria, right? We would eat a lot of things. We eat stews, things like that. I do notice that my body does get tired when I put that meat in it, that heavy, caloric density kind of stuff, And I do feel like I could eat something that's high in veggies and fresh veggies, and then my body does feel ready to go. Something, if you look historically in places closer to Idaho, they tell us remember now it's like, oh, eat a potato and that's good. But in places where there's a lot of cattle and things like that, they're like, oh, you got to get your red steak in, So I found as I evolve for myself, it's better to listen to my body than necessarily what I turn on the TV and see an all beef patty and think that means healthy, because there's a lot of McDonald's in my area,
I agree. I think that experiment that we do, experiment N equals 1, that's the only one person, that's always going to be your best. Even if you, all of us who are clinicians know that the allergists, they have allergy testing, but that doesn't mean that you can see all this stuff on your test that say you're allergic to something, and then you sitting there eating it, right? So you can't just go by those tests. So even if they come up with a test that says they have tests now that tell you what your best diet is. None of that stuff is completely accurate. Your background is, because by the time you leave Europe where you were from, or Africa where you're from, and then all these environmental things that have occurred since those older times impact your ability to deal with food. So the best experiment is what doctor is saying, is the one where you try these things and listen to your body, and your body will tell you the answer.
I think that one of the things that no matter what you decide, you need to drink water. That's the one part of our diet that is most lacking, I think, is drinking water, and nothing substitute for water. Not coffee, not tea, not pop, not any of those things substitute for water. The other thing that I would say is that we have to be careful, because the dietary guidelines that we have been taught to follow really are not what they seem to be. They represent the interest of certain groups of people. People like, for example, what is cereal? Where does cereal come from in the food kingdom? Cereal is one of those things that was created need for milk. So you had to pour milk on these particular. Well, I'm serious. This is how we were socialized to do things. So I'm just saying that we have to be careful. It's not as much, particularly in the Western world, where we have so much influence of our dietary. And I'll say this and stop. If we look at the so-called pyramid that we were given, and the biggest thing was Michelle Obama. When Michelle Obama, I mean, if you ever go to, and I've been to, and I'm sure many of you have, if you go look at what we serve our children in some of these school lunch programs and these breakfast programs, it is an abomination. That stuff is surplus. It's not stuff that was really supposed to be used for that purpose. And our children are given these meals based on these surpluses that have had a sort of ad hoc blessing by the dietitians. And I can tell you that when you get dietitians, and Tony, you probably have had this experience. I've been to conferences with 1,100 dietitians, all certified dietitians, and they wouldn't even talk about plant-based eating. They wouldn't talk about, they wouldn't talk about anything that was juxtaposed to what they were taught. And what, unfortunately, we've been taught some things that haven't worked out so well for us. Because what's the number one cause of death in America? It's called cardiovascular disease. What's the number one cause of cardiovascular disease? If you look at the food, there's a direct correlation to those two things. And if we look at we admit that a third of our cancers are caused by the foods that we eat. And so it doesn't stop us to change those recommendations. And we unfortunately have such financial interests in our food system that oftentimes when we come up with pyramids or my plates or what have you, you're always going to see the egg industry represented, the milk industry represented. All of these different groups are represented because they're powerful lobbyists that make sure that no matter what the dietary guidelines are, that their products are represented.
Wow. Well, Dr. Mason, you are truly great question. What is cereal? It's just balls of sugar. What is cereal?
It's something. It's just made up. It's not even. I mean, what is a cornflake? what is that? Is it really a corn flake? Have you seen flakes on the corn? Have you? I mean, it's not real. It's something that they make up. I mean, you look at shredded wheat; it looks like a little small bale of hay.
Yeah. What is a Captain Crunch? What is that? What is a crunch?
And then they put sugar. They glaze a lot of this stuff with sugar, which does two things. It obviously makes it sweet, but it also makes it addictive. Sugar is a very addictive chemical.
And it's in every aspect. I'm Tony, so I was Tony the Tiger back in the day, right? So you used to call me that, Dr. Pete, you know that. So check this out. When you look at the label for Frosted Flakes, your assumption is there's just as much, it's way more sugar in Frosted Flakes than Corn Flakes. But if you look at the actual carb number, it's 28. I think it's around 28 for Frosted Flakes. It's 26 for Corn Flakes. Huh? Why is the carb number so high? Because all of that stuff Dr. Mason is talking, it ain't nothing but corn. And then some cereal have wheat, and all it is some highly processed corn, all of which is going to be converted to sugar. So essentially, when you do Corn Flakes or Frosted Flakes, you're basically putting 7 or 8 teaspoons of sugar in your mouth. That's what you're eating. And that's not including what the sugar's in the milk. That's not including the sugar. We used to eat Frosted Flakes mixed in with some ice cream.
Oh,
that's right. It was good back then. When I didn't know better, I thought it was the best thing on the planet. And that's just
a diabetic coma waiting to happen. What is that?
Well, but that I think even though we're probably having a little humor with this, it's very serious.
Yeah.
Because what we're doing is we're programming the taste buds of our children. That's what we're doing. And so those habits inure through childhood, even into adulthood. And the job of these manufacturers is to get us hooked on this stuff as kids. And then we eat it, then our kids see us eat it, and then they eat it. I mean, it's all about the industry. It's all about the industry, and it's all about making money. And the food and dairy industries, I mean, are just arbiters for these kinds of things. And they make certain that whatever food policy comes out represents those industries, every single one of them.
And then the last thing, when I think about sweet, like desserts and sweet things, I used to eat Captain Crunch in my ice cream. So when you think about those things, after we've programmed ourselves, when you think about someone that is experiencing substance use disorder, bring it to that. And they get to a point where they feel they need it, and their body is telling them they need it to feel well, but we dress it up. Now we call banana pudding comfort food, pound cake, comfort food. We need it for comfort, And so when we draw that, and it's because we've normalized it, right?
Well, it's called marketing.
Yeah, been marketed well.
It's called marketing. I mean, you look at how many calories that we eat, that we advertise freely. I just happened to see one advertisement for American Heart Association juxtaposed to fried chicken, and then where they showed the chicken, I forget, I'm not going to say the name, but they showed the piece of chicken. They put it in a napkin or like a paper towel and showed how much grease was in the chicken that was being fried. So, I mean, there's no value proposition for health in America. There just isn't. There's none of the industries that we're in support health. With our industries, our federal government, we spend $3 trillion on disease management, not cure, management. As physicians, we are arbiters for the pharmaceutical industry, the device manufacturers. That's what we're taught. The most powerful weapon internists have is an ink pen. And they use those to write those prescriptions that we've been programmed. We tell people, you're going to take high blood pressure medicine for the rest of your life. You're going to take cholesterol medicine for the rest of your life. You're going to take all these different medicines for the rest of your life. Why? Because we're going to make sure that the industry is going to make sure you eat bad enough to need that stuff for the rest of your life.
Yeah. So it's all about commerce and profit. And not just in the food industry, but in most industry in this country. And so many of the problems that we encounter are problems that are related to somebody desire to make money. And so whether it be what you eat or whether it be, and so these are not things that just come. They are things that have been well thought out, well planned, and well performed in terms of getting all that done, so that as you said, you create that desire, that need, that addiction, and it goes on because if you addict the parent will addict their children and so forth. But someone is going to profit from that, and that's really part of the problem that we're having in terms of fixing a lot of these things. I mean, the same things like you talk about in the healthcare industry. It's just so much of that has to do with profit. If we could just get away from those type of things, we would have a much healthier nation. But that would that would mean that somebody doesn't make enough money, and that's a big problem.
Yeah.
But it also, I think, indicates conceptually, the more you learn, the better you're in a position to make choices and make decisions. And so the options, I mean, the only way I used to eat cereal was with ice cream. I mean, I'd put ice cream in. I mean, that gave it, the taste. And all of these things that produce sugar are all of these things that, there was a time when I didn't know if I ate a potato that I was eating sugar in real deal. And so now I'm a little more discriminating. I don't eat as much potato as I used to eat. And potatoes happen to be something that I really like. I mean, I could eat mashed potatoes 3 times a day, and that would be okay. But since I know that that's sugar, I find some alternative stuff. So it's all still democracy, because you can make a decision based upon what you know and what you understand. And so I think we need to make sure that there's more health education as our children are growing up in their curriculum at school, where they learn stuff. I still remember the difference between what we were taught was a whistler and a whiner. That was kind of the way. Whistlers ate certain things, whiners ate other things, or candy would make your teeth bad or whatever. And so when I was a little kid, I didn't eat much sweet stuff because that's what we were told. I got to be a teenager and an adult. I ate as much of it as I wanted.
Congressman.
So it still helps.
Oh, go ahead, Dr. Mason.
No, the congressman was about to say something.
No, I'm fine.
All I will say is this. There's a reason why they have what's called programming on television, because that's what they do. Programming is to program the people watching the program to do and behave a certain way. There's a science even to the intervals of the commercials. And there is a science to the time of day certain kinds of programming comes on. And there are children's programs, and there are all kinds of other programs. Even they started with, there's a reason why we even have things called soap operas, because there was programming around housewives at home at a certain time of the day. So it is everything is intentional. And that's why, I mean, I'm not saying there's some major conspiracy. I'm just saying, no, that's done intentionally. Even the cycle of what we see on TV on the days that it's on is all very intentional. And it is designed to make certain that the things that are being advertised are sold. And I can, maybe I'll bring one of these studies done by the Kaiser people that actually they break it down by age groups, how many minutes of commercials they get per age group through certain periods of the time of day. And they tell you what it is. So all of this is not just happenstance. It is purposeful to sell products.
Wow. Well, of course, I know you guys are going to hate to hear me say this, and that is, it's our time again. But, you know, I do want to say to the following, let me check my other screen over here. 473 people who asked a question before they tell the congressman on me. I'm going to acknowledge your 473 questions. I've read through roughly about 263 of them. They were all really generated for Dr. Pete around his statement. So I'm going to forward all those questions to him so he can talk about his statement a little further with you. But to the 104 of you who asked the question about what is sleep apnea when that was mentioned, if we can remember that, I think we'll make that one of our first questions next week. Even if our topic is something different, we'll just make sure that we answer your question, what is sleep apnea? Because 104 of you took the opportunity to actually ask that question. So we definitely want to make sure that we answer that question for you. You know, Audrey Jaycock says, Dr. Mason is too funny, but on point about the cereal. So Kathleen Jackson says, great conversation. And as we always do on every Monday night, we're just going to go around really quick and ask everybody, what's your until next Monday? Dr. Maya Green, until next Monday.
Hey, everybody. Until next Monday, rest your mind, rest your body, rest your spirit.
Dr. Miller, until next Monday.
You're on mute, Dr. Miller.
Until next Monday, get plenty of sleep and rest.
All right. Dr. Douglas Graham, until next Monday.
Well, I'm thinking the same thing, but I think it's going to be easier to sleep in the future when we have peace of mind, when everybody's safe. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yes. Dr. Terry Mason, until next Monday.
If you haven't gotten your shot, please get yourself signed up to get it. The sooner everybody gets it, the sooner we'll all be. So just to try, I know it's a little bit of a problem with the supply, but just be patient. I think it's all going to get better. It's getting better each day. And don't stress over, do I get Moderna? Do I get Pfizer? Do I get Johnson & Johnson? Just get one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Dr. Tony Hampton, you're until next Monday.
We didn't talk about all the things that you can do to get your sleep where it needs to be, but I just want to mention out loud, magnesium is a great resource. They got magnesium cream, and when you rub magnesium cream where you have an ache, that's going to help you as well. Of course, you can get magnesium from your Epsom salt. I want to mention ashwagandha. That's what they call an adaptogen herb, and that helps all the other hormones and things work better. So that's something to keep in mind. And melatonin is okay for the short term. You don't want to use melatonin too long because it'll suppress your own melatonin. And I mentioned those glasses, and I just want to show you that yes, I have some. So you can get you some man, y'all all look red now, but you can get some glasses like this. I think this brand is called True Dark. Similar to those blue blockers we used to see the commercial for. And if you start, so I'm going to put those on when I finish with this interaction with you guys, and I'll probably wear it until I go to sleep. So there's things you can do. You do not need Ambien and all these medicines. What you need is to treat your body like the temple that God told you it was. So if you do that, you'll be able to sleep just fine.
All right. Deborah Cozy Lane says, hey, and JD Perry says, tie for the sleep help. Tie for the sleep help. Okay, tie for the sleep. Doctor, it's your until next Monday.
Yeah, you know, I'll tell you that when you are ready to go to sleep, if you could just relax your body and lay with your hands at your side, but with the palms up, and just let your body just relax from your shoulders all the way down to your feet, and just picture yourself going to sleep, like getting into a deep relaxation, and you'll look up and next thing you know, you're asleep.
You know, that was funny because when you said that we all dropped our hands and our palms out, it's crazy, crazy. Congressman, until next Monday.
Until next Monday, I want to congratulate the National Association of Community Health Centers. They are celebrating their 50th year of being in business. They got started in a real sense in 1971. That's when the National Association was organized. And Near North was one of the early centers. And of course, this is Women's History Month. And there was a woman there named Miss Alma Moody, who was the stalwart pioneer. I used to travel with her all over America. And I think her son now actually works at Near North. So she is my woman's history shero of the month. And they're getting ready for their big conference that would be next week. And I simply commend and congratulate them because from that little beginning, they now service between 25 and 30 million low and moderate income people in the United States of America. And Dr. Pete, of course, is a part of that. And so that's mine until next Monday.
All right, so remember to join us right here, same bat time, same bat station, right here for Couch Conversations with the Doctors. Remember, it's for informational purposes only, but here is where you understand that true health is wealth. As always, we want to make sure that we give you just a few reminders before you go. One is to make sure you schedule your appointment for your corona vaccine. So we have to add that to our list of things you need to do. So make sure you schedule your appointment. For those of you who asked me, did I do it? Don't ask you to do nothing that I didn't do. If you missed it, I posted it. It was up there. I showed you both times with my little naked arm hanging out there. So you saw it both times. It's up there. And I put the congressman up there again so you can see that we were all up there. Also, want to remind you to do what? Take these little things here and make sure you wash them really good. Wash your hands really good, making sure that you, as Dr. Maya does, making sure that you get in here, make sure that you do that. Remember to wash those hands very good frequently throughout the day, and remember to use some hand cream so they won't look leathery like you wash those hands. Also, I want to remind you to social distance. Remember to social distance. Put your hands out, and if you're touching someone and they're touching you, just so close. And we also want to remind you to wear your face coverings. Remember to wear those face coverings over your nose and mouth. That's the most important part, over your nose and your mouth. Not just over your mouth or over your nose, over the nose and the mouth, wearing that very snugly across.
Yeah.
Look, guys, it looks like she's frozen. So
Yeah.